First, before we go into the music, I would like to ask you, well, what is it like growing up in Arlington? Can you describe the whole town for me? What sort of town is it?
So it's really it's a suburb of Fort Worth, Texas. And really I kind of grew up in there's so many, you look at the Dallas and Fort Worth, we call it the Metroplex.
Hmm.
And Dallas is a big city. Fort Worth is a big city with a lot of charm, a lot of kind of cowboy roots. You have the stockyards there, which is where a lot of the cattle trading went on in kind of the Old West times. It was really the kind of spot for that, in the big cattle business in the 1800s. And so, Fort Worth holds a lot of that kind of cowboy charm. It's still a big city, but then you have all these sprawling cities around what we call the Metroplex, because those cities are only 20 minutes away from each other, but so different. And every little city is so different, and all these little towns around them. And I kind of grew up, I would say south side of Fort Worth, Arlington, Mansfield, Burleson. There's kind of a little, it was an interesting kind of thing to grow up because there was such a mix of, when I would go to at my schools, there was a mix of country people, and there was city people, there was suburb people. I was one of the country kids, by the way.
The country kid. Why did you identify as a country kid?
Well, I mean, I just grew up in Texas, living kind of that, I guess, outdoor lifestyle. I grew up on land. My parents had, some acreage, horses, and that kind of thing. And we grew up hunting and fishing and kind of living that lifestyle. And listening to a lot of country music. So, yeah, I would say that's probably that's there's far more country than me. I'm sure it wasn't. We were kind of 25 minutes away from the big city, but
Yeah.
we were far enough away to where we could kind of live kind of a country lifestyle.
Yeah. And well, I read, of course, well, I that your mom and dad, they were really into country music. What sort of artists were they into? Your mom and your dad. What were they into different country artists or?
A little bit. So, my dad's records were a lot of, I mean, the classic country that I grew up on and loved was like Merle Haggard, George Jones, um, of course, being from Texas, George Strait, Alan Jackson. And my mom really loved kind of the outlaw kind of stuff. If she was listening to music, she was listening to Waylon Jennings or Willie Nelson, or Johnny Cash, that kind of outlaw kind of movement. So they were a little different in their taste. And of course, there was a lot of different, there was classic rock around. There was a lot of that, but the stuff that stuck with me was their country stuff.
And what was for you? What artists were you really into when you were young? Country artist.
Uh, really for me when I was super young was Alan Jackson. That was the big one for me. Uh, I remember he had a covers record actually he did called Under the Influence that I just couldn't get enough of when I was a kid. I just loved that record. Um, that was always my request, riding around was that record. And I also loved Merle Haggard. My dad had this Merle Haggard uh, 15 number ones CD that was in his car. That had songs like Cherokee Maiden and Silver Wings, and it's all in the movies. And I always loved that. Even as a kid, I was a little bit different, I guess, and then I loved kind of the older stuff.
What made you attract? What made you like that music? What was the sound, the vibe when you were younger? What sort of feeling did it give you?
It was more a lot of the stories, the stories and all those songs. Uh, I think in the way, you know, especially with guys like Alan and Merle, their delivery was so good in that you felt like they weren't singing at you. They were singing to you, and they were telling you a story. Uh, and they didn't feel like they were. I mean, they were, it's kind of had that everyman voice that could just sing the phone book and make you believe it.
Yeah.
That I think kind of resonated with me. And even growing up, I grew up with uh, kind of newer artists like Dirk Bentley at the time was big. And I was a huge fan of Dirk's stuff. And Dirk's has that same thing where you don't really feel like he's ever singing, it's not, you just feel like he's really telling you a story.
Yeah.
I think that always resonated with me with country music, especially.
Is it the same, well, the same feeling you had with Elvis Presley? Because you were really into him too. I mean, the way that he sang and maybe sang to you.
A little bit. Elvis kind of changed my world in that I had grown up really loving all these country artists. And we would go down to the Houston Rodeo, which is a huge rodeo down in Houston, and they always have big acts that play during the rodeo. And I would go down with my family every year, and we would see, we saw like Randy Travis, one of my favorites, play there, Alan Jackson, Dirk Bentley. Elvis was the first one I saw when I discovered Elvis's music and really dug in and started watching Elvis's videos and his movies and everything. Elvis was the first really true, just entertainer. Elvis entertained an audience in a way that I hadn't really ever thought of. That was so new to me, and I think that was where I kind of put it together that music was something I wanted to actually do, because I never put it together that, like I'd seen people singing country songs. I loved country songs. That's great. But I had never seen anybody connect with an audience the way that Elvis did. And really kind of, I can watch an Elvis video and I feel like he's just jumping through that screen, even though I never got to see him live. There was such an energy there. And that's where it connected, I think, in my brain, that music wasn't just something I could listen to. It was something that I could do. I could entertain. I could be on stage. I could tell stories on stage. That's where it connected to me, and that was the different part about Elvis. Elvis had a little bit of that. Elvis had a good, Elvis's foundation was a lot in country music as well. He was a big fan of country music, and he could tell the stories as well as anybody. But Elvis also was very impressive vocally, and especially in the '70s, he was singing. He was definitely singing big time by the '70s, and so he kind of had all that. And that really turned my world around, and that was when I decided music was something I wanted to do.
Yeah, I think it's best. Well, obviously you know the movie, but I think that 1970 movie, that's the way it is.
Yeah, oh yeah,
That's where he is at his peak.
I think so. Yeah, I agree. He looks great. He's skinny. He's
Yeah,
he's singing. He's got that power in his voice.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree, and just a force on stage. And I think you see it like that's the way it is. You see a lot of him. I mean, I can't imagine somebody like Elvis being the biggest star in the world and not playing a live show for 10 years, and then all of a sudden, he does the '68 comeback. He gets this big show in Vegas, and you really see him kind of coming back into the live thing. He's going, "Oh my God, this is great!" You can kind of feel his energy of going, why did I go so long without doing this?" And a lot of kind of, I feel like there was a lot of, you know, pent up energy there.
yeah. And you have a mature voice.
Mhm.
When I think when people listen to your music and they don't know what your age is, I think they estimate you a bit older than you are.
Mhm.
When were you aware of your unique voice, your really deep singing voice?
I, I got into music so early. I was a kid, and I discovered Elvis around 7 years old, 8 years old. Uh, it started as kind of uh, just dressing like him. Then it went into I got a karaoke machine
Yeah.
for my birthday or Christmas one year, and I think from the beginning I was trying to sing like Elvis. Who had a very famous baritone voice, and I was always frustrated that I couldn't, sing just like him. And then whenever my voice changed, I hit about 13, my voice starts changing. Um, I think it was a combination of a little bit of that. My dad's got a deep voice, like a talking voice. Uh, he could be a good singer if he wanted to. But he, so I think I had a little bit of that genetically, and then some of it through just my favorite singers have always kind of been that lower kind of register singers. And I think from an early age, as soon as my voice started changing, I was kind of training it to to be low and do that. Um, and now I spend most of my time trying to sing higher. Yeah, which is a bigger challenge.
Why? Why? Is there something that you need to do? I don't know because well,
Well, I just like for anybody, I just there's for any singer you want as much of a range as you can. A lot of times I look up to guys like Roy Orbison who had just a famously amazing range and could hit these notes that you just think, wow. So it's yeah, I feel like I've gone as low as I can go now. As low as I need to. Now it's kind of training my voice to try to hit a little bit of those higher notes. And you saw guys like Elvis. Elvis, in his later years, could hit a lot higher notes than he could when he was younger.
yeah.
So a lot of that was through training. So it's just kind of a funny thing that I started out trying to go low. Now I'm trying to.
Uh, you're really now into the music business. Well, you're now based in Nashville. Like you were saying, what is your typical day when you're not touring? What do you do music wise?
Uh, well, I do a lot. I still do a lot of writing. If I'm home, if I like to, I'll set up co-writes and I'll go and I live about 30 minutes from downtown Nashville, and 30 minutes from like Music Row where a lot of the writing happens. Um, so a lot of times I'll set up a co-write and do that. I try to I take my downtime very seriously nowadays. We spend a lot of time. We play a lot of shows, a lot of high energy shows, um, and I have to really remind myself when I get home to not do anything. And try to take that rest time seriously. But it mostly turns around. I mean, here at my house, I've got we got a piano, I've got guitars strung all over the place, so that if I think of an idea or something, I can always pick up a guitar and try to work on that. Most of my time at home is spent, I would say, writing or trying to just kind of resting and writing really.
And writing, do you mean writing the songs, the structure, or also the lyrics too? Lyrics too? Is it both?
Yeah, it's both. It's really anything. Every song for me starts kind of differently. It could start on just a phrase, song like what sounds like something I do. That was a song or an idea that I heard in conversation. I was just talking to a friend. He just goes, that sounds like something I do. And I kind of went, took it and wrote it down on my phone and thought that's something, it kind of hit something within my songwriter, bug. And I took it into a co-write and just, and then you start working on it. Hey, I think this is something, I took it in to write with Brett Beavers and Terry McBride, and I kind of knew the energy that I wanted. I knew the kind of beat that I wanted. I wanted something very tempo. And then we just went from there and ended up just discovering stuff through that. Sometimes it starts with a little lick on the guitar. Sometimes it starts with just a flat out chordal melody that I'll have, like I've kind of been doing a little practice here lately of I'll take a song like I took a while back this happened. I took Roy Orbison's Crying, very famous Roy Orbison track, and I learned all the chords from it. And there's some really cool chords in there. And I just took, like, what if I just took these chords and just like rearrange, use them in different ways and see what happens. And ended up writing a song like that, where I'm not, it's not crying, it's not this, but those chords that he uses in there are used in different places and just trying to, a lot of that's just learning, how chords can work together.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's always different. It's always a little different.
It's like the song "Because of the Beatles." I think it's the backward chords of the Beethoven sonata.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting too. I checked it. It's I think we are now February 18th, and I think 1 year and four days ago your EP was released. How do you look back on those 4 songs?
I think it was great. As my sophomore project is kind of a scary thing, especially with having a little bit of success with Dallas Fort Worth, my first album. And I felt like that was such a good encapsulation of me as an artist. And I got to have a lot of songs on there, and I got to tell a lot of different stories in there. And I got to kind of build my live show around that. And with Jukebox Songs, my EP, it was trying to find a little bit of that magic that I found on that first record, but also trying to continue the sound. And I feel like we did that. And I look back, and it's great to see, audiences responding to those songs on that EP just as much as they're responding to the songs off the first record. So I feel like we done good. We did our job on that EP, and now I'm looking forward to trying to get some new stuff out there again.
Yeah, what is your what are your plans for a new album then? Because well, it's one year ago. The first album, what Dallas Fort Worth, was released 2022.
Mm-hmm.
What are your release plans?
Well, we're gonna go and cut an album very soon. We're gonna cut some songs, going to the studio, very soon. Hopefully sometime this year is what I'm planning on having some new music out. And it's just a fun, it's a fun and kind of challenging process in a way too. I'm trying to find. I never want my music to get too repetitive. I, I I've always loved having just different types of songs that I could play in a live show and have different moments and have everything. So again, it's kind of that challenge of I'm trying to fill the gaps in between really all the music that I've released so far. Okay, what don't I have?
Yeah.
What kind of songs don't I have? What can I bring that's a different influence? I can bring some different influences in and make it work in a different way. So it's fun. And it's just, and the door's kind of open too for me. As a songwriter, I feel like I've turned a corner and really know who I am as a songwriter, way more than I did on the first record. And also too, I know I can recognize a good song that I didn't write. And so that's an exciting thing too, of, now that people know who I am in Nashville, I can get some big songs from big songwriters, and take them and try to make them my own. So that's a fun process too, and it's almost as fulfilling as writing a song, because you can take a song, and once you find that thing that makes it yours, it's a good feeling because you think, oh, I've got a sound, I've got my sound.
Yeah. And well, like you were saying that you are actually looking for the sound of the songs that you don't still have. Um, does that influence the new album too? Can you say, well, this is the sound or the songs that are going to end up on the next album because of, well, lacking still in the live show? Or
Yeah, so that's part of the mindset is I'm actively kind of thinking of songs that I feel like I need in the live show. As far as like,
what sort of songs?
well, I mean, for instance, it's like I want to. I've been writing to get a song that would be a good show opener. Something high energy. It's like Elvis would come out to like CC Rider, in the '70s, and it was always such a great opening track and such a great tempo. So as trying to find that kind of thing where, not necessarily thinking that I want to write CC Rider, it's that I want to find something with a lot of energy that kind of really introduces the show, gets people on their feet, gets them like going. So that's kind of the mindset. There's other moments too, that I've been trying to fill in and do that. And also too, it's just sometimes if you're recording a song, there's songs that I'm going to put on the record that aren't really intended for live show, that are meant to just be the record and something you can ingest there. Because I think you got to have a little bit of everything. I mean, I don't think the Beatles ever really wrote, expecting, especially in the later years, to play their songs live. Of course, they didn't. It was just intended to be the record. But at the same time, I love playing live. I don't have any intentions on ever slowing down on the live shows. So that's something that's always on my mind. Yeah.
well, we talked about the importance of stories, telling stories.
Mhm.
Is there a song of yours, or maybe a song that you've written that hasn't been released, that you say, well, this is a story that I'm well really proud of that I wrote that's in a song of mine?
Oh, there's plenty of that. I mean, I've written, I've written songs. One of my favorite artists is Marty Robbins. And if you ever listen to all those old Marty Robbins, like Gunfighter Ballad record, like that, those old cowboy songs. Um, and I've written songs that are kind of reminiscent of those, that kind of have that, storytelling aspect to them. Um, yeah, there's plenty of, I mean, I'm always trying to find, anytime I'm writing a song, whether it's a fun, just hooky track, as we say, like with a good, um, something that gets stuck in your head. You sometimes as an artist, you want to write those. Those are good for radio play and all that. So, but even when I'm writing those things, I want to, I call it a little like, let's put some meat on the bones. Let's put something in here that is a little, paint some pictures, and use some of that kind of language to try to get some kind of point across, rather than just having a track that's just a catchy thing that
Yeah,
really
yeah.
means nothing. So I'm always kind of looking for that.
Is there one song that you say, well, if I that's for me the ultimate story song that's been written by someone else, of course,
Yeah.
maybe, but is there one song you say, well, every time when I hear that song, it really strikes a chord with me?
Yeah, I would go. I mean, as far as a story song, you can't get better than, I mentioned Marty Robbins. Go listen to go listen to El Paso or Big Iron, and they're 5 minute long songs with no chorus. It's just a story all the way through, but you feel like you're in there every time. You kind of see the picture of this story that he's telling. And I think he was a master of that. I go back to those songs whenever I'm really wanting to tell a story. I kind of go back to those and try to pull from those.
Yeah. Last question. Well, you're touring. You're going to tour Europe now too. Is it special for you touring Europe?
It really is. The Ever since the first time I came, I came to Europe for the first time with C2C a couple years ago, and I just found the audiences to be so invested in a live show in a way that you don't always get. Um, they're so. I think first of all, if they're into your music, uh, they're going to move their schedule so they making sure they can come see your show, and they're going to be there. They're going to be there with you the whole time. They want to really enjoy every minute of that show, and you can definitely see that. And also too, I think the audiences seem to really in Europe really seem to respond to uh, the more classic kind of country music that I love, the early rock and roll music that I love, Elvis and Roy Orbison, and that everybody seems to really respond to that in a way that's really, it makes me feel good because I feel like I'm on the same page as far as what my influences are, with a lot of my audience.
Yeah.
And so that's always fun, and just having a very gracious audience. They feel like they're just seem like they're happy that we took the time to get on the plane and come over, and so and we kind of we just and for us it's exciting because we get to see new places and meet new people and see different cultures. And so I think all the way around it's just kind of a magical thing where both of us are very excited to be there. um, not to say that I'm not excited to play shows, in the States and everything. We have some great shows, but it's just a different experience, and it adds that kind of, I think, little bit of magic to it.
Yeah, it's just both worlds, of course. Drake, may I thank you for your time?
Yeah, thank you.